Hello, everybody. My name is Armin Arumchi, as some of you may know from AdvaTech. So I am here for another one of our conversations surrounding entrepreneurship and venture capital. Today, I am joined by my guests, Sumrita Bhatt and Raman Kaul from Conlis Global. I'm really excited to talk to them about a few different subjects and get their expertise and knowledge into the conversation. So first of all, thank you guys very much for joining me. I appreciate it. I know you guys are busy, and it's a pleasure to see you guys. And before we start, I'd love to kind of get right into it and hear a little bit about your personal and professional backgrounds. And we can start with you, Sumrita, please. Be my guest.
Thank you so much, Arman. My background, actually, I started my career as a researcher. So I have a PhD in regenerative medicine and tissue engineering back from India. And after that, I moved to Canada for my postdoctoral. No plans of settling down here. I just came as a work permit holder here to Canada, to Calgary. I landed here with my 1.5-year-old daughter. So it was a very good, I still remember those times when winter started and we had to figure out things as we all immigrants do. So I came up as a postdoctoral fellow with University of Calgary. I did my postdoctoral in stem cell tissue engineering at U of C for 3 to 4 years, and then I moved on to industry. So I did a MITAX fellowship with industry, and that fellowship was on point-of-care devices. So my first fellowship was stem cell bioengineering, again, a very commercial area, and then point-of-care devices, commercial area. And while I was doing my postdoctoral MITAX, COVID started. And as COVID started, the company started pivoting towards other areas. As we know, everything had to shut down. University, there was nobody working in the university. All the departments were shut down. So universities, at the university, because everything was closed, we were not able to do our R&D. So we kind of pivoted towards other things. As an industry, they had to think, how do we generate revenues? So they pivoted into diagnostics. If we all remember, at the time of COVID, the testing was a major limitation. There were not many testing centers across Canada, across Calgary. So what we did as a company is we established testing areas across. Our first center was here in Calgary, and then we started opening up centers or labs in Toronto, BC, Winnipeg Airport, and we also tried. I think we're a center at the diamond mine up north, but Raman can talk more about that because he was leading that venture. So all that experience of the COVID times gave me an idea about how businesses work, how people generate money, how do you talk to other people, how do you expand your business, how do you do people management. I learned a lot of things which I haven't done, which was never told me during my either PhD or the postdoctoral. And that is not what people are taught at the schools. And I would say we can talk more about that. That is a gap. We need to learn all those things to make sure you grow as a person, you grow as a businessman. So I think there was a very enriching experience knowing the business, dealing with people, knowing the people management. And then when COVID started declining, company pivoted towards other things, and Raman and me collaboratively thought that this is a good time. We know a little bit about business. We have an R&D, very strong R&D background, and then we kind of incorporated Conlis Global, and we'll talk more about what we do and how Conlis came into being after Raman introduces himself. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sumrita. And I'll turn it over to you, Raman.
Thank you, Arman, for having us, first of all, and it's a pleasure to be on this show and talk to the audience and share our experiences and learn a little bit from you as we have this conversation. So, similar to Sumrita's background, I do have a similar academic background. My basic degree is in microbiology, and then my doctorate is in functional genomics, molecular biology. And I had an early opportunity to kind of get into research while I was back home in India. And I kind of developed that curiosity at my undergrad stage, where I kind of looked into things, how things are developed and how they're applied from research labs to market. That was my initial kind of a teaser. And I landed up doing my PhD in New Mexico State University, US. Finished my PhD, and as all academia do, they go do their postdocs and eventually are much more, apply for professorships and all those academic positions. It was a little different for me. I did do some postdocs and kind of landed here in Canada, where I was fortunate enough to head a R&D division and work on a very cutting-edge technology. Had my own ideas how to carry them forward, and I had flexibility to do that. So assembled a team of engineers, biochemists, regulatory personnel, and kind of learned from already people who are in this industry. So they were the mentors. I wouldn't say I or we did it all by ourselves. There is always somebody who will give you a helping hand and be a mentor. So we had a good mentors over the time. And that's what my business experience was, coming from academics and now talking to industry people, that how you should be thinking about making innovation live into market. How can you bring that to life? From last over a decade, I working with Sumrita, we are in medical device thing. And as Sumrita described, we had experience in making technologies that was R&D, but then also shifting our hats from scientists to business developers and talking to these stakeholders, end user clients, and saying, okay, what are your gaps and how can we help? So we devise some workflows, our business strategies, price pointing, all of that. I think our team was very good. We were fortunate enough to work with a team which were really enthusiastic about their work and passionate, and we developed those strategies, and that's how we learned. And then Conlis came in, and we implemented those learnings into Conlis. And we're proud to say that we have a very good collaborative network at this point, and we are coming up with very innovative, cutting-edge products and technologies, and we want to help other people. So then there comes that service which we provide to other companies also. But yeah, this is my short introduction. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I find it really interesting when you're talking about that sort of transition from technical to business, right? And what those sort of important factors are in order to be able to make that transition. I know that over half of founders, I think the number is 62% of founders, do not have a business background when they found their business. And obviously, there's a necessity to fill that gap, right? So, I mean, that's something we do for technical founders who haven't been fortunate enough to be able to gain some of that business knowledge. Is we help sort of internalize those practices and teach and coach and mentor and be able to teach them how to incorporate those business aspects into their products, their technical products. Now, the other thing I'm curious about is that an even larger number of founders, I think it's around 80%, actually don't end up founding a business in the field that they began in or in the field that they studied, right? And, maybe I'll turn this question over to you, Samrita. How crucial do you think it is to have a direct academic background in the company you found? Or do you think that there are a lot of transferable skills and knowledge that you can take with you in founding a business?
It's a very interesting and tricky question. I was listening to the podcast, one of my favorite businessmen who established a huge network of, I think he did it, the name of the business is ThyroCare. He said this line that if you are doing a business in something that you have a skill in, or you have studied the same thing and you're doing the business in the same area, you will do good. But if your studies are different than your business, then you will do better than that. meaning that it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
What matters is your desire. What matters is your consistency. What matters is you want to do it. I would say that's a key. But if you have the skill set, it to an extent, because I can relate it more, because the business that we have right now, the Conlis Global, the first product that we have is a bone wide filler. We'll talk more about that. And that product was developed in the lab that I have done my PhD. Half of my PhD was on that product. Now it adds up a little bit confidence in me when I go out and when I pitch, because I know that product. I have a lot of confidence. I know it's a huge amount of work that we have put in that product. So that confidence factor might be there always, that I know this product, I know people in this area, people know me, and that would relate to the confidence that I have in the product. But at the same time, I don't want to discourage people who don't have the skill set, who have come up with a business idea that they don't know nothing about. They might just do better than that. It is always about consistency and never giving up attitude.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I couldn't agree more. There's no direct sort of roadmap that you need to follow in order to be a successful founder, right? There are different routes to that same success that everybody's looking for.
Yeah.
And Raman, you mentioned that you had some mentors that were able to guide you into who you are now and sort of shape you as a person. How crucial do you think it is for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, those coming out of academics, to have mentors in front of them? Is it something you think that people should really put a little bit of focus in finding role models and people who are willing to teach and share experience?
It's a fantastic question. So, in my personal opinion, there are mentors every stage of your life. Doesn't matter if it is business or personal life or your education, your friend group. You're always looking up towards somebody where you want to become somebody. So personally, for me, along the way, my journey, there are crucial people who have given me insight, and they necessarily not from the medtech. That's a funny thing, because it is all linked. So I have some friends who are in food industry. They run restaurants and all. And when I sit with them, my early stages of learning businesses, some of the conversations I had was he running up a restaurant and the challenges he's facing with workflows and how to do supply chain, the fresh, and those challenges are very common in across the industry, right? But that gives you sense of like what his thinking was and how did he mitigate that, right? And that's very important. So you can now translate that and say, okay, I already know there's going to be challenges. Where can I build safety nets? Should I rely on one supplier or should I create another backup for another supplier? How should I price my things? It's the same thing. Like, if I'm making a dish out in a restaurant and putting it out, what is my cost to company and what profit margins? It's a basic business models, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that sense, I had several mentors and friends who helped me around. Now coming to the medtech industry, and it's a very important question, which I would like to kind of change my focus and put a question out there. If I'm an entrepreneur, what do you think is the first thing I should be doing if I have an idea? The answer is validate it with the user. Don't just develop anything where you think, hey, it's going to work because I think it's going to work. No. If I developed a hammer, I'll go to a carpenter and say, hey, do you think you're going to use this hammer? Right? It's the same thing in industry. So we have done, I think Sumita has been very, very excellent in making those connections with key opinion leaders, who we call KOLs, and asking them right questions that what are your challenges in your practice, either as a clinician, as a surgeon, as a healthcare user. What are your challenges? And those challenges, what do you think should be a solution to that? They will give you very specific points, which will become basis for you to develop that product. Or refine your product. If you already have a product, now you can change that product and adjust to that. And then you
Yes.
already have a validation about that. So
Yeah.
in that sense, those are the mentors, because back and forth between them, they trying to help their patients because that's their goal. And they will tell you, okay, if you do this, this is going to help me and this is going to help my patients. So they, in a sense, are the mentors. And there are different business mentors. We've been fortunate enough to meet them through events. Some people work in finance, so they guide you on how to structure your company. Some people work purely in sales, so they tell you, hey, how to do the sales, how should your PR be. So you need all of that. You need a team. And as a startup, that's essentially a lot of cost.
Mm.
So people, and what I have found, are helpful. If you reach through people on LinkedIn, they will help you. They will give you, it might not be immediate, but they will help you, and they become your mentors for that stage of life. So I'm very thankful to all of those people who have helped us to reach up this point. But yeah, to your question, absolutely. Go and talk to people and validate that thing. Talk to your end users. Talk to people who have already spent lifetime in building businesses, and learn from them. Learn from their mistakes, actually. Learn from their mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer, and it's really interesting. You bring up this concept of validating your idea, your product, and with a lot of the companies that we work with, this is actually the most common sort of roadblock that a lot of companies have, is that they put a tremendous amount of effort into development before having that validation in place. And one of the factors that I've found, is causing this is this sort of fear of what happens now when I actually put my idea or product out there, right? You spend a tremendous amount of time and energy coming up with something. You have a lot of passion for it. And there is this sort of fear of, what if my concept is rejected? What if it isn't accepted, the way I want it? And I think really what our advice always is that just because the product you have in its current iteration is not accepted by the end user, it doesn't mean that the idea behind it is not necessarily valid. It simply means that you may need to make adjustments. And sometimes those adjustments can be very minute, and sometimes those adjustments can be tremendously complex. But regardless, going into it with that level of validation can completely restructure the path you're taking going forward, and can result in you saving years of time and a tremendous amount of energy, money, and what you need in order to be able to go forward with a startup. So, I very much, align with your answer there, that validating your product, and the way you put it, as, the people who are validating it, they are acting as mentors as well. I think that's a fantastic way of putting it.
And
I
I
want
will,
to,
yeah.
sorry,
So-
go ahead, Raman.
No, I was just going to add a point to this, that when you're doing validations, and you spoke about R&D, trust me, in my experience, a short experience I have, where you start is not where you're going to be ending.
Mm-hmm.
You start with one concept, 90% of the chances that that project is going to go in a tangent and land in a very different product. Just because of the features and the feedback you're getting from the market, and your KOLs and the pricing point, all dictates gives the shape to your product. I can make sensors which have gold PCBs and everything, but well, is anybody going to buy that? It's going to be expensive. So pricing also dictates a lot of research you put it in. So it's back and forth between different stakeholders all the time. So I tell whoever I meet, as a consultant, as a friend, whoever is in this industry, I always tell them, don't go and develop things. Do a feasibility test. Go and talk to different vendors. So it can start from simple and client and user. Have his opinion, put that opinion, lock it. Now go to a manufacturer and say, hey, do you have a lineup? Can you manufacture this the way I'm thinking? 90% of the times they will say, no, you have to pay for the new lineup, because they're not going to change their workflow just to accommodate your line. You have to adjust to their line, so that you can just block that area, that line. So that integration is fed up. to your R&D team saying, hey, guys, don't develop something which they cannot make.
Hmm.
See their processes, integrate early on to their processes, validate with them that, hey, if we can put one layer on another, can you assemble it robotically there? For example, right? It's an example. So those are the few key points I will say. Don't be afraid. And you also picked up a point, and Sumita, I'm going to give back to you. But
No.
one last thing. Yes, they are scared to share their ideas. It's not just because of the rejection. It's also of the IP, which is
Yes.
valuable to the company. It's always a sense like, is that person trustworthy? Can they take my idea and run with it if they have the resources? Because for example, Conlis is starting up, it's a new kid on the block, and I share my idea with Roche. Roche has every resource to convert that into a product within few months, right? They have all the resources. So my suggestion to any entrepreneur there is, do your due diligence, have your NDAs, have your 30 feet, 3,000 or 30 feet, 1,000 view presented. Don't give specific details, how it's working, but just an idea saying, hey, what if I had a product like this? And the conversation will start. So, I just wanted to add few those points, but Sumita, please.
Thank you,
Yes.
Raman. So in terms of validation, I think Arman, you said a right point, and Raman also focused on that. Validation is one of the most important points. So we have been lucky enough that while we were developing the product that we have right now, we had a team of orthopedic surgeons. Those were always there to give us feedback, but not everyone has that, right? Not everyone is lucky to be having a clinician on your side.
Mhm.
So I was talking to one of the heart surgeons at Foothills. We were having conversation on one of our other products, which is related to heart. And I was telling him, I don't understand the idea that we have developed something in the lab and we give it to clinicians, and clinician says, I don't even need it. I don't use it in my practice. So my product is a waste. And that is what happens in most of the R&D products, that whatever is developed in the lab is not at all being used in the clinical practice. So my idea should not flow from R&D lab to clinics. It should flow other way around, the reverse. Idea should come from a clinician. They should tell us, as Raman mentioned, they should tell, okay, this is the gap, make a product according to that gap. And that is where I think that would be, if we can do that, that would be the best use of our public funding that is going into R&D, that we will be able to generate more and more products or convert more and more R&D into commercialization.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And yeah, I completely agree with what you guys are saying. And Raman, as you mentioned, that sort of second layer there, which is exactly the IP and the sort of being able to sustain your product. And it's a delicate balance, right? In order to be able to get proper advice and at the same time make sure that the people you go to for advice aren't going to run away with your idea and use the resources that they have and you don't, in order to be able to take away what you've worked on. So definitely there's a delicate balance there. And Sumrita, I completely agree with your approach there as well. So I think that would be a good point to sort of transition into a little bit about Conlis Global. I'd love to hear about what really made you take the leap into starting this company, and maybe a little bit about the background of what the company does, why it does it, what is the major problem, and what is the solution that Conlis is providing to that problem. So Sumrita, maybe I will throw it to you to kind of give me that initial background, and we can delve a little into the details.
Thank you, Arman. So Conlis actually came, as I said, Raman and me, when we had opportunity to work for a business, and we got an idea, okay, this is how business runs. And then we kind of thought, if we can do that for somebody, if we can generate revenues for somebody, why not working for ourselves? And that is how the Conlis came into being. And now, okay, we have the product, so we had to think, what do we incorporate into the company? So there were a couple of things that our idea was focused on too. So if you look to our look at our logo, there's a bridging gaps is our tagline. So there are a couple of meanings to that bridging the gaps. So we have two wings actually, a service wing and a product wing. So product wing, our nano cement is a bone wide filler. So it's a completely different thing. We are right now raising for that, and we have IRAP and NRC IRAP funding to move that product forward. In terms of our services, or how do we bridge the gaps? So bridging the gaps is, as we were talking about, the validation. Now there's an R&D team. They are making a product, right? But once they've developed the product, what do they do after developing that product? The product is already, they have spent like 5, 6, 10 years in the lab. Now they're very confident about the product. But now what happens? Most of the researchers, most of the people who work in the labs, they don't know pathway downstream. What happens after you have developed the product? What happens, or what are the criteria that you have to fulfill to make sure that FDA, Health Canada approves it? Or while you're developing that product, what things you have to keep in your mind to make sure that your regulatory authorities would approve your product? That is a gap, and that is where we are working on to educating people, educating researchers, educating faculty members on what should be your pathway to ensure that you are bridging all those gaps, making sure again that we are converting maximum number of R&D products into commercial products.
Okay, and Raman, I'll turn it to you as well, and maybe just get a little bit of insight on this factor as well. There is the overall number as high as 90% of startups fail, right? And there are many different reasons for that. There are a lot of startups that they fail because they run out of cash while they're doing these things, right? So I'm wondering, how important is the financial aspect of when you are developing a product, when you are going for regulatory approval? How difficult is it, especially in medtech, in order to be able to find that level of financial efficiency with what you're doing and not have a burn rate so high that you run out of cash before you even hit the stage of scaling? Is that something that you find is lacking in the knowledge of founders, where they're spending too much too soon? And what are those sort of stages where you say, this is the time to hit the next stage. This is the time to go for approval. This is the time to start looking at scaling the product. This is the time to look at commercialization.
There are several aspects of this question, and I'm glad you're asking all these questions. Very important questions, though. It's a balance. It's really a balance. There are two kinds of entrepreneurs in my mind, where some are very overcautious and some are bold and will just go out and take risks. They're risk takers, right? And there is a fine line where you will make those decisions how your company is going to survive. So I'll give you an example why I'm saying that. Overcautious people usually wouldn't take risk even they have the resources. For example, everything is there. There's the funding and all. They miss the timing. There is always a timing to release your product, to make that noise, and let people know that, hey, I have this product and I'm ready to be there. All entrepreneurs, there is always, you don't have, no product is 100% ready for market. Like, there is none. It's just like at that point, like COVID, right? That's an excellent example where people, if I had sold you a COVID kit 10 years back, you wouldn't have bought it for $200 or, even for, $1.
Right.
There's no COVID. So timing is very crucial. You have to keep an eye on the market, what is going on. Like, AI is the thing now. Now see how many fundings are coming up for AI. So as an entrepreneur, to mitigate and to divide your risks, you need to know, first of all, where you should be aware where you are, the geographical location, what is critical in that country, in that region, what is the focus there, right? If you're not launching it there and you're launching in a different geographical location, then study that. So market research, for example, is very important before you do anything. Don't develop a widget where you cannot find a place for it.
Right.
Do your market research. And then funding is another way where you can, when you're doing so collaborations, as Sumita was saying, what Conlis Global does and has kind of mastered is finding these partners where you can be non-diluted. So that in Canada, for example, Canada is very good in providing these initial grants where you can be non-diluted, federal and provincial grants. So you can, and there are certain criteria which you need to fulfill. So industry to industry collaboration, there are grants. There are industry to academia collaborations where there are grants, and there are grants where you can combine with NGOs or training platforms, and you can leverage that because your product can be all of that. It depends on the perspective you present in that grant. So use those. I know it's frustrating when you're writing a grant, and grant writing is not everybody's cup of tea, so to speak. But then there are resources for that too. And that's what Conlis also does. If you don't have that ability, we will, we will list down the grants you are eligible for. If you don't have capability of writing it, we have the staff and networks who will write for you so that you are eligible. So you don't miss that crucial time to apply or to be in market. Every month which you are not inching towards the market is the revenue lost. That's the math, simple math, right? Talking too early to investors is a risk, and sometimes it's beneficial. Now, depends on your technology. If you haven't done your due diligence and you're talking to an investor, they're not going to come back to you because you will look as a rookie, for the lack of the word, coming to pitch to a VC group, and you haven't done your due diligence about what the CAGRs are, how is the market trend, what is the global market for this, what is Canadian market, US market, or any other market or secondary market. Investors, in my sense, don't look for science. They do. There has to be credible science behind, in medtech at least, but 80% is dictated by your business sense, your math. 20% science, yes, but they have to be convinced with the numbers first, then to look into science. So your first 30 seconds, 1 minute, if you don't give them a wow, I want this, they're not interested. So that way, coming back to your question, the finances, yes. So be very selective in having yourself non-diluted, using other resources, bring a technology to a level where you can now present as a proof of concept, or you have a working model, then engage with VC. So you have to divide your journey into steps. That I'm not going to engage a VC just because I have an idea. They're going to ask you, what do you have? Like, in reality, what do you have? You have nothing. It's an idea. People can have a million ideas in a day, but does it mean there's a million products out there from their idea? No. So you divide your journey into phases. That's my recommendation to whoever the early entrepreneurs are. And then look for collaborations. There is somebody who is working very similar, but they have a different aim. And you can collaborate to co-develop technologies if you don't have resources. Already established companies, you can pitch to them and saying, hey, can you license this? I'm getting this idea. Can we co-develop? So that's another way to do that without putting a lot of money, because then you already have a client. For example, now I gave you an example of Roche. If I have an excellent technology which is dealing with detection of Alzheimer's, for example, and now I have some kind of science which is going on, and I present that to Roche and say, hey, you guys are already a product which you're selling to AHS. I have done my due diligence looking at their product profile and say, and my product is little cheaper and better than you. Would you be interested in having a conversation? And positive, if they say yes and it goes fine, and they say, okay, let's go develop, it's an excellent thing for you. Actually, you have now somebody who has distribution network, who has all the networks, all the resources you can leverage. That's the best model. Or even those companies like Sanofi in diabetes, they put grants out. So look for those grants. So you have to be entrepreneur as a, I say as a startup. multiple hats, right? You are their business developer, you are R&D, you are HR, you're everybody. So keep your eye open. Don't get discouraged by people who reject and say, that's not. Every rejection, there is a lesson to be learned and why you got rejected, and incorporate that in your business plan. So develop a good business plan, network with people, non-dilutive funding, academia, and Conlis is one of the companies who have been very good in developing those networks. So your previous question to Sumrita was like, how will you define Conlis? I would say I will define Conlis as an incubation hub. We are an incubation center, because now we're at a point where, you name it, we have collaborations in energy sector, we have collaboration in forestry, we have collaboration in medtech, we have collaboration in SaaS technologies, in regulatory. It's not Conlis, but we have partners which we trust, and they have credibility behind them. If a client comes to me, I can guide him from concept to commercialization. Even we have collaboration with manufacturers in US and in Canada. So if you have concept ready to be manufactured, we can take it. So I will define Conlis as an incubation center, like in incubation hub, where you come up with any stage of this journey, and we can help you. Just tell us what you need, and we can definitely help you with that.
That's great. Yeah, there are a lot of parallels between what Conlis does and what we do at AdvaTech as well. And as you mentioned, grant writing, right? This is something that not every founder is comfortable with, but non-dilutive funding is the lifeblood of companies, especially when you're a company that works in clean energy, sustainability, medtech. There are a tremendous amount of non-dilutive resources available to you. Not everybody is aware of what they are, and not everybody is comfortable going forward. But I think, what we at least try to do is assist and guide in that process, and really try to teach founders how they can continue using this process going forward, and making sure so many of those things are internalized. As you said, founders need to wear multiple different hats, right? And it's not as simple as just delegating everything out to other people. You have to really, develop the skill set and knowledge to be able to do these things yourself. And now, speaking of services, what I'm hearing and what I know about Conlis is that it's very comprehensive what you guys provide. Obviously you are somewhat industry agnostic as well. What you can provide can apply to a lot of industries. And there are some unique services that you provide as well. One of them being the establishment of R&D laboratories. I was wondering if, Sumrita, maybe you can touch upon that specifically as sort of a unique service that's offered, some of the challenges behind that, and maybe a couple of the other services in the service wing of your business that you provide.
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much for that question. So in terms of establishing the labs, so we together, me and Raman and other team members, those are the core team members, we have established during the COVID times. I was talking to you about establishing the labs. So we essentially developed 5 labs across Canada. So we have a knowledge from, and those parameters are covered by each team member at different stages of the development. So we have a strength to start from a scratch. So we have done it several times, like starting from a scratch, starting from an empty room like this, and then building onto that. So infrastructure wise, we do have a strength. Raman will expand a little bit more on that because he has a very strong background on infrastructure development. Then getting the regulatory approvals, I would say that is the biggest that's the biggest point there, because having your compliances in place, having your regulatory approvals done, all that is our major strength. We have done it several times, and we are happy to do it. And I think that is one of the bigger strengths that Conlis Global has. And additional services we have is we are able to do the regulatory pathways for mostly class 2, class 3, class 1 medical devices, in vitro diagnostic devices also. So FDA, Health Canada, CE, that's what our strengths are. We can do that. And in addition to that, in terms of validation also, like if you have developed a product and you want to know what is the shortest pathway to the market or shortest pathway to the revenue, it's not always Health Canada or FDA approvals. There could be something called lab developed tests. We have done such approvals initially, so we have a lot of strength on on giving advices on is your test, can you release it as a lab developed test, and how we do it, strategize the whole plan for introducing your test as a lab developed test. So those are few services that we provide at Conlis. Raman, do you want to add up to
Yeah,
that?
definitely. I mean, Arman, we believe that your net worth is your network, right? So the more you're connected, the more people are, involved. That's the more good service you can provide. So, Sumrita touched based on developing labs. In our previous positions and roles, we were very fortunate enough to work with teams where we would draft floor plans, talk to the approval agencies about their standards and match that floor plans and HVAC or electrical, all those components which are crucial to a lab development. That you don't want to get $1 million machine and don't have 30 ampere plug, for example, right? And
Right.
you think, whoa, what's going to happen?
Mm.
So as I said, start of this conversation, talking to your stakeholders is very important. So what we are good at is we have developed a network with already established companies. I wouldn't drop names here, but they're already catering, all over the globe. They're big. So we develop those relationships where they will, if we have a project, something like a big project, they will send us the site preparation guides. So everything is listed there. Like, for X instrument, this is the space you will need. These are the dimensions. These are the electrical. These are the HVAC requirements and all. So we take all that, and our team handles that site preparation, so to speak. And then comes another way, another phase is the regulatory or compliance, where Sumrita is very good. So she takes care of that. Hey, do we have skilled personnel to run that? If we need some kind of technician who has certain certifications to run that, which can be eligible with the state or the province or the federal guidelines. So we take care of that too. And then also developing relationship with the industry really helps, because there are new technologies. For example, you're building a lab for diagnostics, right? And you're just saying, hey, I'm just going to go do urine analysis. I'm going to buy a bunch of microscopes and testing, blah, blah, blah. Since we are connected with the industry, there might be a new technology which can reduce your cost. There could be a machine, because we just had a yesterday meeting with one of the companies, and they have developed excellent technology, which we used to send samples to US, and it takes 3 months to get the report back. Now you can do that in 24 hours. And that's a game changer, right? That's what you want, efficiency in your processes. You want to establish labs, which is cutting edge. And I don't have to tell now patient to wait for 2-3 months to get your report. I can give you that in 24 hours. And that's benefit all across. There are secondary impacts to all that, right? It's not just establishing the lab, but then secondary impacts to that is very good. So that's what we are good at. Getting those models, saying, hey, to the founder, saying, hey, you came up with this idea, but consider this also. We will not make a decision for them, but we'll definitely put that on a table and say, hey, there are these things also which you can integrate and reduce cost and get your lab much more modernized than just running with the crowd. Otherwise, everybody has the same infrastructure, same type of testing. How are you different? How are you going to survive? Is with these innovations and in incorporating. So that's one of few services we provide. And as I said, we work with different industries. So if you have an idea, and that idea, we recently did some projects where we work with film industry and a medtech, and you can see how that is. But there are now, think of VR,
Right.
VR models. Film industry has pioneered that, and they're masters in that. Now you can, you can integrate those things. And I don't want to give you more details on this because there's somebody else's project and all, but it's an example that you can have a transdisciplinary crosstalk and develop those technologies. And we're always there. We are a phone call away or an email away to have a conversation on that.
Fantastic. No, I really appreciate your guys' insight. You know, when you have the opportunity to not only work on your own product, but also provide services to many other startups. And I think that's where you really start to see the common hurdles, the common challenges, and be able to find out what the solutions to those problems are. So I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing. And, you know, maybe take this opportunity now to just transition into the last chunk of our conversation here. You know, Samrita, one of the things that we have spoken about that we want to touch upon here was some of the unique challenges that founders face. And some of those challenges are the ones that we have spoken about so far, which really are challenges that apply to every scenario. But there are some unique challenges that people face based on their background, based on their gender. You know, only about 10 to 15% of founders are female, yet only 2 to 3% of VC deals go to female founders. And I would love to hear your insight as a female founder to say that, what do you think that is? Do you think that that is an inequality of opportunity, a lack of representation, or do you simply think it's something that, you know, needs to be worked on, a more general problem that exists in many industries?
It's, I would say, very good question. Thank you so much. And it's a combination of factors, right? There are cultural factors to it, and there are things, you know, things those add up as we go. So, couple of things. And I want to take this opportunity and thank my network, because when I talk to many other female founders, most of them had a challenge. And I will talk about those challenges and exactly what they face. But personally talking, I mean, I have been fortunate enough because I always had a team of people with me. And I'm fortunate enough because I'm skilled in that area. So people already have an idea, oh, I have developed this product, I will know in and out of the product. But not everyone is like that. And as I mentioned in the first question, not everyone has to be like that. You can venture into something that you would want. It should not decide whether you will be successful in that business or not. So the challenges that as a female founders that we face mostly is, you know, when females are tied up to there's a stereotyping. Females are tied up to maybe they're good at doing a wellness business, beauty business, or fashion business, something like that. But when it comes to technology, there's a if there. If it is a female founder, which I think it's a stereotyping, and it is not. I don't think it's a right way of looking at the female founders. Or, for example, a simple way of saying that it is, there's a general stereotyping that females are not good at maths or technology. But no, that is not right. You can't generalize all that. So that is one thing. And in terms of fundraising, I've heard it from many of my female friends, those are founders, that when they go pitching to the VC room, and if they don't have a male partner with them, there's a bias, which I think as a society we need to work on that. I have been supported by many organizations across Canada, and I'm very thankful to few of them. For example, SheBoot or C51, a couple of organizations. Those I'm linked with, and they've provided a lot of support. But there needs to be a lot of work done in this area. And again, unrepresented female, and there's a lot of unrepresentation in this area. That number of VCs, those are females, are less. So there is no, you know, you want to see. I want to, if I'm going in a board of, I'm going for a pitching, I want to see more females there. I feel comfortable, to be very frank, you know, and that representation of female VCs, founders, needs to increase. Government need to put more effort into that. And of course, organizations need to put more efforts into supporting those female founders.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, something interesting I read, I believe it was a Harvard Business Review, was that, you know, the types of questions that women face in pitches can differ as well. Men were asked questions related to growth, whereas women were asked questions related to risk, right? And I find it really interesting that, even though in this day and age, we believe we've made a lot of progress, some of the numbers show that in recent years, that number is going in the wrong direction, right? Which I think is really a testament to the fact that, some things need to change, right? As you yourself mentioned before, I'm a father to a 3-year-old girl as well, right? And already she is far beyond me in many things. And truly any industry, and especially something as involving as much passion, energy as being a founder and having a startup, certainly should provide an equality of opportunity. So I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of effort that needs to be put by everybody in the industry to make sure that everything we do is based on merit. Everything that we do is based on merit, which I hope that is the direction we're going. Now, I really appreciate you guys coming on. Before I wrap it up, is there anything I missed? Is there anything else you guys wanted to chat about regarding Conlis, regarding yourselves, regarding entrepreneurship that I may have missed?
Well, I would just, end this conversation on a positive note, saying, there are challenges, as Sumrita pointed out, and we work with, or I work with one of the initiatives with University of Calgary. It's called One Child, Every Child initiative, which is focused on child and maternal health. What Sumrita brought here, one aspect of women as an entrepreneur, but women's healthcare and child's healthcare is also an issue. It's an another end of the spectrum, not entrepreneur or building technologies, but technologies specifically built for child and maternal health is also lacking. So you can see a bias there also. And I really want to encourage people who are listening to this and who are in this field to come and talk to us. If you have a technology, you have an idea, come and talk to us. We are into that realm also, where we help to build child and maternal health-based technologies. We can help them connect to different industry leaders and build that network also. And don't forget about the indigenous people. They're also marginalized and not represented, and indigenous women are not given, you think of if people like us or Sumrita is struggling, what happens at that end? It's so have that perspective in mind next time you meet somebody who is encouraged. Have always a positive, maybe not a financial help if you don't have financial, but words you can always encourage and support and provide them network. I think I will end on that note that we should all contribute towards it. It shouldn't be a woman problem. It should be us problem. So we should always contribute towards that. Yeah.
Right.
That's a fantastic sentiment, and I would absolutely encourage people to do the same. And Sumrita, is there anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, a quick point. If anybody, any female entrepreneur struggling right now listening to this podcast, please, you're most welcome to come and talk to us. I am actually involved in many organizations where I volunteer, where I kind of have a role of a mentor, where I mentor people. It could be in academics or it could be in business. I'm happy to do that, and I think that's how every one of us has to contribute to bridge that gap. So I'm happy to help anybody who is listening to this podcast and wants any guidance on anything.
Fantastic. We will certainly, in this post that we put out, we will certainly link both of your contact information and a link to Conlis Global's materials and website as well. And again, I cannot tell you how thankful I am for having you two on board. You are phenomenal speakers and clearly have a tremendous level of passion and expertise in what you do, which is can be rare these days. So not only do I appreciate your time, but I appreciate your willingness to share some of your insights and your knowledge with us. I look forward to working with you closely in the future, collaborating, finding synergies, and finding a way to make the world a better place through all of the products that are developed and all of the businesses and founders that come forward. So thank you very much, Sumrita. Thank you very much, Raman. And I hope to see you guys again and maybe have another episode in the future.
Thank you.
So much
It was a pleasure.
for having us.
Thank
Thank you. Bye-bye.